Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here tonight. I am so excited. We are here at the Mic'd Up and Unapologetic first inaugural podcast. Yes, yes, yes. I am so pleased and honored to have the Dr. Lendra James. She is the AI guru. I just was checking out a few of her stats. She is the AI guru that will literally build businesses for nurses within 90 days. It's all AI empowered. And she's going to talk a little bit about herself before we dive into the topic of today, which is trained to lead, not to own. Yeah, you heard it right. Trained to lead, not to own. Why high impact leaders are now becoming entrepreneurs. What better person to get than to get Lendra, right? So, Lendra, if you can kind of give us with a brevity, a little bit about yourself. I know we had a wonderful conversation over the holidays and about where nursing is and where we're going and what AI and how people should really learn how to embrace AI and not consider it as their enemy. So, with further ado, I am going to pass the virtual mic, over to Lendra.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm Dr. Lendra. I'm the founder of DLJames Consulting, and I spent years in healthcare leadership before realizing that leadership alone has its limits. And if you don't own the system or you're not, it has its limits if you don't own the system and you're not shaping the outcomes, right? So today, my work focuses on AI implementation. So I help in that I help organizations decide where AI belongs, right? So where it does, where it doesn't, and how leaders stay accountable, right, without creating risk, confusion, or burnout.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. So, once again, like I shared, the whole purpose of relaunching, rebranding Past the Mic, which is now AKA Mic'd Up and Unapologetic, is where we speak truth to power. So we are really going to dive in, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. So first off, let's talk about the leadership gap, right? These are things that often sometimes senior execs, I don't want to say all because there are people, we've been in the executive roles and we've had the opportunity to identify gaps. So when we talk about the leadership gap, you've spent decades in leadership roles where you've seen the biggest gaps between leaders that are trained to lead versus being prepared to own businesses, ideas, or intellectual properties. Where do you see the biggest gap? How leaders are trained to lead versus being prepared to own?
That's a great question. Leaders are trained to optimize within systems, right? So when you break it down, we're not necessarily trained to optimize, to design or own the systems, right? So most leadership structures are built for stewardship, not ownership. Right. And so leaders are trained to manage risks, to execute someone else's vision, right? And
Mm,
perform well inside an existing structure. And what they're rarely trained to do is to decide what should exist, what shouldn't exist, and where they're personally accountable, right? So for a long term, so when we talk about ownership, requires judgment, not permission, right? So that's the gap. Leadership training prepares you to be excellent within a system. Ownership requires you to decide whether the system even makes sense.
mm,
And what's interesting is that um, AI is actually helping to reveal these gaps, right, in real time. So organizations are rushing to adopt tools, but few leaders are really prepared to decide what AI should actually do, or where it should live and where it shouldn't live within their system. So that's an ownership issue, right? Not a technical one.
Wow, that is really, really deep. And I loved how you leaned in and talked about that we are trained to lead within systems and carry out and execute the system's mission, but we are not taught to own. So that's really powerful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So then my next question I'm going to lean in is conditioning versus ownership. Many high performers are conditioned. Ooh, girl. Many high performers. I'm sorry if I can. I know you're a doctor, but I just that just like set me back to a moment in time. Many high performers are conditioned to climb ladders rather than build them. For example, we talked about this behind the scenes, how, we're taught to go, BSN, master's level, doctorate, MBA, certs, and all these things. And we joked about how, we thought, well, I'll speak for myself. I thought CNO was the end all be all level. And I'm not anyone who's in that role, because we do need powerful, impactful chief nursing officers, or those that are at that C-suite level. However, as I shared with you in our very candid conversation, I had someone challenge me and say that that's what I aspired to. And I said, no, I thank you so much for that vote of confidence. But I see a wide, vast operational opportunities out there, especially now with AI. So because many high performers are conditioned to climb ladders rather than build them, how does traditional leadership train unintentionally discourage ownership in entrepreneurship?
High performers are generally rewarded for compliance and consistency, right? Not initiative and risk. So let me give you an example. So what do I mean? Traditional leadership rewards predictability. So you're trained to hit metrics, follow escalation paths, avoid unnecessary risk. And entrepreneurship requires the opposite, right? So deciding without permission, of absorbing the consequences and being wrong publicly, right? So leaders aren't lacking capability. They've been conditioned, as you mentioned, to equate safety with success, right?
Yes.
So that conditioning works in organization, but it breaks down when you step into ownership. And that's not really, to your point, that's not really taught to us within systems, right?
No,
And you're right. We did have a very candid conversation, which I appreciated it, because far too often that's what the feelings are. But I think a lot of people, they don't know how to express it. What we're saying right now, there's a lot of people who feel this way. And I think when we articulate it, and when they hear this, they're going to be saying to themselves, I know a lot of people are shaking their head like,
yeah, we're giving you
get another degree, get another certification. And we have what it takes, and we have to lean into it and own it.
Yes, and I appreciate you sharing that piece, because and there's nothing wrong. I mean, it's a beautiful, wonderful way to aspire and climb the ladder, if that is what you choose. But if I know that you are the guru. We talked about, that was a whole nother candid conversation about wellness and burnout, right? And we talked about the importance of going from burnout to brilliance, because a lot of people that are probably watching and will be catching the replay have a plethora of certs, plethora of degrees behind their name. I mean, there's so many nurses that I know and you know that literally have certs and degrees from A to Z behind their names.
Alphabet soup, right, is what we call
Yeah,
it. Yeah, the alphabet soup is what
right?
we call it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some are working 16, 18-hour days and very burnt out, frustrated, dejected. But like you said, one of the key words, and I was like, wow, that's an aha moment. They feel a sense of security within the systems, not knowing that any given time, like they say, in the young folks would say cancel culture, at knowing at any time they can be canceled.
Yeah.
We talked
Yeah.
about that. So the moment of awakening, I'm leaning in. Was there a defining moment in your career where you realized leadership alone wasn't enough and ownership became necessary? What was it that shifted for you? What was the aha moment? I know what my aha moment was, but what was yours?
There wasn't really a single dramatic moment, and I think I wrote about this in one of my previous newsletters, that it was just a gradual realization, and that I could influence outcomes, but I didn't control them, right?
Mm,
So I could lead teams, but I didn't own the system shaping the results. That's when it became clear that leadership without ownership was a ceiling, right? And entrepreneurship removes that ceiling. So if I
mm.
wanted to shape outcomes responsibly and sustainably, ownership wasn't optional, right?
I
So leadership gave me responsibility, but ownership gave me control over the outcomes.
I love how you said I was able to lead outcomes responsibly. That is a powerful statement. I think I'm gonna have to keep replaying that on like a short video. Yeah, because no, seriously, because there are so many. I know we just have a very brief time, but there are so many watching this right now that are saying, I feel like I have no control. I'm responsible for so much, but I feel like I I have no control. But anyways, I
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. That was really powerful. So on to the next. We're getting deeper and deeper into training to lead and not to own. Why high impact leaders become entrepreneurs. So we're going to talk about risk, power, and control. Leadership roles often come with authority, right? A lot of times, I'll never forget, I had a situation where I had just had a leadership role. I was in my crisp white lab coat, and this young student came up to me, and I'm the type of person, I will never dismiss or disregard a person's aspiration. But she looked at me in that crisp white coat and said, that's where I'm going to be someday. And I just smiled and I said, you're absolutely right. And I walked away. But in my mind, I said to myself, does she not realize there's a lot that goes in with to be a leader? So leadership roles often come with authority, but not true power. How does entrepreneurship change a leader's relationship with risk, decision making, and control?
That's a great question as well. Entrepreneurship makes consequences unavoidable, and therefore it clarifies decisions. So, what do I mean? In leadership roles, risk is often shared or deferred, right? Like, oh, let me get the charge, or let me ask my boss, or let me ask the COO, let me ask the CEO, right? So it's deferred. It's not my responsibility. It's someone else's responsibility. But in entrepreneurship, risk is personal, right? And it's immediate.
Yes.
That changes how you decide. That changes how you think. That changes how you approach situations. So you stop optimizing for approval and you start optimizing more for outcomes, right? And your control isn't about authority over people, it's about ownership, right? It's about ownership of the decisions, the systems, the consequences, right? That's why ownership, it really forces you to have better judgment, right? And it's because there's nowhere to hide. So that's where, right? It's nowhere to hide. It really isn't.
It's the complete onus is on you. And I want to just really be very transparent. Entrepreneurship is not for the faint at heart. Okay. We did have a conversation about that. You really have to up level your critical thinking, your judgment, being able to be really solid in whatever decision that you make, because it's you. It's you. And you said it best. You said whatever decision you make, good or bad, people are going to see it publicly. There's nowhere to hide. So that's beautiful. So skills, so we're going to talk about skills that transfer and those that don't. Which leadership skills translate well into entrepreneurship, and which leaders often have to unlearn when they step into ownership? Like what, share with us, what are some things that you knew that, wow, these are transferable skills, and then there are other things I had to unlearn?
Yeah. So your leadership becomes very transferable, right? Your skills, let's just say clinical skills, all of those things become very transferable. So for me, a lot of the unlearning became that type A personality, right? So that was because I was used to checking boxes, right? I was used to checking a box, making sure this was in place. Now, is that something that's transferable? Systems and structures and models? Those things can be transferable, but you also have to unlearn the having to ask for permission, right? So it goes back to that permission granting that I talked about. It goes back to when we, again, have those type A personalities, we have to learn to be able to bend and understand that everything is not going to happen according to the way we think. We can plan out something to the T, but guess what? We have to leave room for curveballs. And a lot of times we don't do that in certain positions and in certain organizations. Entrepreneurship teaches you that. It teaches you to be lenient. And I'll give you an example in my wellness business. I have independent contractors, and sometimes, some of the nurses who are still working within systems, which is completely fine and normal, it's a difference between the nurses who are becoming independent contractors who they want to eventually be entrepreneurs versus the nurses who are independent contractors and they're just looking to pick up. Either way is fine, right? They're looking to pick up something per diem. Again, either way is fine. However, the mindset is they need permission from me, and I have to constantly remind them, you're an independent contractor. Right? And for those who may not understand what that means, as a 1099, you take care of your own taxes, right? Mm-hmm. There's certain things you make your own schedule. That's what I tell you make your own schedule. When you can work is when you can work. You don't need to ask me for a day off, right? You're an independent contractor. So that's an example, right, of when we talk about transferable skills and things that you have to unlearn. You have to unlearn that, guess what? I don't need permission to do what I need to do. I need to make the best decision that's going to have the greatest or the best outcome.
Correct. So there's that level of autonomy. And again, as we talked about, it's a mindset. Some people are ready to take that leap. And then others, kind of like we talked about, have to kind of unlearn some of those skills and prepare themselves. And then they can always come to they can always come to Lendra for consulting if they need assistance in regard to this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then
The
so,
mindset.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say the mindset piece is huge, right? So when we talk about mindset, it's there's a few factors that really go into it, and it's one is believing in yourself, right? It's believing in yourself, and that's where it really starts. It's that awareness of your own capabilities, and that awareness of making a decision. So the best thing that we can do is make a decision that involves choosing us over choosing to continue to be in a position where it's going to continue with the burnout, as you mentioned, or give us something that's more unstructured.
Correct, correct. Thank you for sharing that. So then next we're going to talk about the rise of the leader entrepreneur. Why do you believe we're seeing more high impact leaders, especially in the healthcare, nursing? We did talk about that behind the scenes, post COVID, during COVID, especially healthcare and tech transition into entrepreneurship like right now. What is hot and what is the hot trend right now? Or I don't even want to say trend. What is currently present and is not going away?
AI.
Yep.
So,
I was waiting for you to say that.
like AI. So, right now, AI is something that if you are not utilizing, you're already behind, right?
Mhm.
And I've said that many times. I've said that. I think we talked about this conversation as well, and it's because it's. I don't even want to call it a revolution because we've been
It
utilizing
is.
it, right?
Call it. It is a revolution. It is a
Yeah,
revolution. Mhm.
we've been utilizing it. We've been using AI. We've been no problem. We've been utilizing AI. We've been in healthcare. I'll give you an example. So when we think about how we scan your barcodes, right, for medication administration, and it
Mhm.
populates into the medication administration record, that's
Mhm.
AI. When we
Mhm.
use speech to text on our cell phones, that's
Mhm.
AI. Right. So we've been using it, and there's a lot of fear of the unknown. So when we
Mhm.
talk about the AI implementation authority, it's about responsible use and implementing systems that you understand, not just using a tool because it's the latest tool, but it's having guardrails, knowing what those guardrails are, making sure that we understand what safety and privacy looks like in implementing these structures. So these things are important, and we really need to educate ourselves on what AI is and what it is not, because otherwise we're going to be really going on into 2026 still practicing like it's 2024, and AI has really changed the game, right, for
Mhm.
a lot of organizations, system, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's business ownership. It has really infused itself into our culture now. So if you're not adopting it, what are you doing? You have to ask yourself that.
And besides within the healthcare industry, and we've talked about this, I follow and I listen and I go to different conferences of people in different industries, and they actually have said some of the top guru speakers, experts have said that AI will, in the next decade, produce the most amount of millionaires and billionaires utilizing AI. So I'm going to lean into the last question. And then I have a really fun way to kind of close out with you. Um, so I'm going to lean into advice for leaders on the edge of ownership. Somebody who's teetering on the edge and saying that, you know what, I've done it all. I think it's now time for me to step out. Like, today is Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King holiday. And we talked about faith is
Mhm.
necessary, to take that first step without seeing the whole staircase, right? So you have to have a certain level of faith to be able to, you have to believe in yourself and believe in your talents, your gifts, and everything that you have. So for leaders who feel that pull towards entrepreneurship, but are unsure where to begin, what is the first mindset shift or practical step that they must take or that you would recommend? I mean, there's
Make
so
a
many.
decision.
Make a decision.
You really just need to make a decision. And it's just really that simple, because the longer we choose to ponder, right, the longer we wait and try to weigh the pros and cons, 6 months later, 6 months is going to come. A year is going to come. 2 years is going to come. There's always going to be a reason. There's always going to be, life is going to life, as we mentioned earlier, right? But you have to make a decision, and it's truly that simple. Am I going to choose me, or am I going to continue to choose the path that I'm on now?
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I'm going to lean in with just some real quick rapid fire. Have you ever done a rapid fire questions before?
Let's do it. Rapid fire. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So answer with the first thing that comes to mind when I do these questions. So leadership or ownership, which creates more freedom?
Ownership.
Title or equity, which one matters more long term?
Well, I didn't catch. Would you say equity?
Title or equity, which matters
Equity.
more long term? Yeah. Biggest myth leaders believe about entrepreneurship.
Oh, this is good. This is going to be a good one. Yeah.
Biggest myth leaders believe about entrepreneurship. What do you think?
Biggest myth leaders believe about entrepreneurship is that they're going to be able to, they could do it on their own.
Yes. One leadership habit that must be unlearned to become an owner.
How can I say this? I want to say this nicely. I want to say this nicely because I don't want to offend anyone. So something that you have to unlearn is that, because as nurses, well, let me just answer the question. Don't skinch on yourself. And I can, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but kind of elaborate, because we don't want anybody to misconstrue. You want to elaborate on that one?
Sure. So sometimes we try to freebie our way through everything, and we can't always do that. We have to be willing to invest. Maybe that's how I should say it. Invest in yourself. We have to be willing to invest in yourself, invest your time, invest, that may need money, that may, you have to be able to invest in yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, I say it all the time. People invest in bags, in materialistic possessions, in cars, in hair, in nails, in whatever travel trips, whatever, for something that we talked about, equity, something that's going to be equity long term. You should invest in yourself. So one, risk or regret, which is more dangerous?
Regret.
Is entrepreneurship taught or claimed?
Claimed.
One skill every leader needs before starting a business.
Say it again. One what?
One skill every leader needs before starting a business. One skill.
Coaching isn't really a skill, right? So the ability to submit.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Do you want to kind of lean into that one? Why you say submit?
Yeah.
I know why, but I just want the audience to know why.
It's the ability to understand that I don't know everything, right? And that I don't know everything, and I'm willing to have a coach. I'm willing to be that mentee, right? I'm really willing to be that good steward for myself that's going to benefit myself and my family in the future, my business in the future. So it's really being able to say, please coach me. I want to be your mentee. I want to learn because I want to be successful.
Yeah. Now, security or sovereignty, which are leaders really seeking?
I'll say sovereignty.
What keeps most high impact leaders stuck at the edge of ownership?
Wanting to scale. Oh, stuck at the edge of ownership.
Yeah. What keeps
So,
most high impact leaders stuck? They're stuck. They're at the cliff. They're not ready to jump off. What is keeping them
oh,
stuck?
that's security,
Mhm. And one word that defines the future of leadership.
innovation,
Hence,
and
your success
you
is
know where I'm going with that.
yes, yes. So before I thank you so much. So before, thank you for, let's clap it up for Dr. Lendra for that rapid fire segment. She did very well. Um, so is there anything that you would like to share with the audience that you have an up, I know you always have an up and coming um, training session, AI session. You're always doing something. We're all doing something. Kind of share, if you're able to share, because we did talk about that behind the scenes. How we move. Uh, we have to be very strategic and aligned. So
Right,
for
right, right, right.
2026, for 2026, what are you doing in this first quarter? Is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap it up for tonight?
Yeah, no, no, thank you. So first quarter is going to be, you'll see a lot of going, you'll see a lot of what's going to happen in second quarter, I should say. First quarter, we're like you said, this is more of the preparation. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. There's definitely the Health and Wealth Expo summits that's going to be coming up for those of you who are who's watching, who follows that. So we host an event called the Health and Wealth Expo, and we had a AI edition in November. So there'll be another AI upcoming AI edition. So more to come with that. So when you talk about not being able to share too much, but there's a lot of exciting things taking place, especially with AI. I'm in a group for AI. There's going to be some literature coming out. So there's a lot going on. But like I said, some things are behind the scenes, but I'm excited about them. Like, and more to come. So
Yes,
and
yes.
we right when we talk about implementation, when we talk about responsible use, that's where we're guided and where we're headed, and making sure that people understand that we don't have to be afraid of AI, and it's really about embracing it. So, our upcoming campaigns is about just that, embracing it, leading it with it responsibly, using it responsibly, implementing it responsibly, and helping you to bridge those gaps in your usage of AI. And we have ongoing trainings and cohorts for development, and we're working on some new trainings and development with the foundation, the HW Foundation. So
Awesome,
there's a lot taking
awesome. And
place.
then
Yeah,
I think
2026 is
this is a woman that does a lot. Okay, this woman does a lot. But I think you're forgetting one particular one. If I may lean in and share, I don't know if those of you that are watching or catch the replay, Dr. Lendra has created an app. Can you kind of tell us about that app and how you're helping nurses? Because I'm working on my own, but
oh,
I'm not quite
good.
there where you are, but you have an actually functioning app. So can you kind of share that with those that are watching?
Sure. So the Health and Wealth app is, and that's one of the second quarter launches that I was mentioning. So
Oh,
the
okay.
health
Oh,
and
sorry.
is
I
no,
put pressure
that's
on you.
okay.
Okay, okay, okay.
That's no, I know because I don't want to sound cryptic because it's not, it's not
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I appreciate you bringing it up, but yeah, that's one of the second quarter launches that I was speaking of. We have the Health and Wealth app, and it's just that, and the app is really designed to help you with mindset, right? Help you with wellness, to give you different guides throughout the day. So to give you daily guides on what you can do if you're dealing with burnout. Again, give you different guides on what you can do, and it's also going to approach your wealth habits, right? So a lot of us, we don't know what that looks like. A lot of us don't even know how to budget our money. So it's also going to address those acronyms as well, those elements as well. Your budgeting, like what that looks like. What is my wealth building habits? So, and of course, AI is going to be infused in it and giving you different tips on daily tips. There'll be weekly education workshops. It's awesome. It's going to be, and we're fine tuning some things, which is why the app will be launching in second quarter. So I'm
Yes.
excited.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
excited for you. I can't wait. And then
Thank
share
you.
that information. So I'll share it on my social medias as well. So before I close out, I just wanted to share. I love to close out with a quote. So we talked about train to lead, not to own, and why high impact leaders are seeking to become entrepreneurs. But I do want to lean more into this AI because I know so many colleagues and future up and coming nurses are hearing so much about AI, and those that are not familiar with AI are, you know, kind of putting a shedding a level of hesitancy. But I do really want to say embrace it. There's so many opportunities, but I'm going to leave with this quote. Um, Artificial intelligence is not a substitute for human intelligence. It is a tool
Mhm.
to amplify human creativity and ingenuity. So I thank you so much for everything that you shared with us today, tonight on this podcast. And I wish you all the success and all the desires of your heart for 2026. And I just pray that you have all the strategic and alignment and the destiny helpers that you need to achieve everything that you're setting forth. Yeah. So have a great night. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And thank you for that mention of what you said about AI. And that's just really true to your point. We always have to think human first, right?
Mhm.
So when we talk about the fear of people feeling like, oh, AI is going to take our jobs, no, you have to embrace it and always remember human first. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your platform. And
Yes.
thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. All
Take
right.
care.
Bye bye.